Austin Ainge said players want to have hope and they want to win. Does that mean no tanking? What else could Austin Ainge have meant? Plus deep dive on Jeremiah Fears. Next on Locked On Jazz.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps, also up on YouTube for you. Please enjoy the comment and part of the community and be together as one. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen, and thank you to the everydayers that make Locked On Jazz what it is every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, today's show, we're deep diving on the top 5 picks. Jeremiah Fears will be joined by John Williams from Oklahoma, and Rafael Barlow will break down Fears for us. I want to go back to the Austin Ainge press conference and his interview with DJ and PK on KSL Sports Zone to start. All right, the big headline story was about tanking and that we won't do that this year. The two comments to me that I thought were most important was one I touched on yesterday, which was Ryan Smith very clearly saying this is Austin's show. So this is a seismic change, though the last name may be the same. It is still a seismic change to the front office of the Utah Jazz and how they do things. There is a new person in charge, a new key decision maker. That's as seismic a change as you can make in the NBA. Number 2 was I thought the comment that he made that players want to have hope and want to win. And I think we need to delve into that one a little bit. I said yesterday on the show that, frankly, if we don't draft next year and lose the draft pick, to me, it seems borderline negligent. Ainge phrased this better than I did, often the case, on DJ and PK. His comment about the draft pick, when asked by David James, the morning show host on, if you don't know who David James is, on 1280 The Sports Zone, was it's a huge factor in how they approach this upcoming year. Huge factor. He said twice. And then he said, there's many other things you have to take into consideration. And being solely focused on the draft pick can take a toll on a team and the organization and affect all other things. And that's a better answer. So, putting together, what does it mean when he says we're not going to tank? Or actually, what was specifically asked was whether we were going to manipulate minutes and things of that nature for lottery odds. And he says no. And number 2, he makes the comment that players want to have hope and want to win. And number 3, he says that the draft pick is a huge factor. But if it is the sole thing you think about, you can take a toll on the team and the organization. And you can really miss opportunities. So if I were to rephrase what I said yesterday, it would be negligent if you didn't consider the importance of the pick. And what Austin Ainge is saying is it would be negligent if you didn't consider the options outside of taking the pick, of possibly losing the pick. So let's isolate that for a second. What is being said here is that if the Utah Jazz go into this offseason and get 2 or 3 really good opportunities to acquire a star player or a marquee player, and they aren't willing to do it because they don't want to lose their first round pick, and they put the entire organization on hold to make sure that they're 1 through 8 next year, that they take an entire portion of deals and say, we're not willing to do them. Because there's zero circumstance where we're going to be willing to have the 16th best record in the NBA and lose our pick. You might think to yourself, now let's get to that in a second. Wait a sec. You're saying the 16th best record, like the 8th playoffs team in the West, lose in the first round of the number 1 seed, and we're going to lose our pick for that? That's a terrible decision. And you might be right. And that would be part of the calculus that basically what Austin Ainge is saying is they have to make. And I might agree with you, actually, on that. If I was in a room with Austin Ainge and Marquise Newman and Mark Taylor and Sean and Justin Zanuck and all the other front office people, Steven Schwartz, I'm forgetting Katie, I might argue, I think we're better off not making that trade for that all-star, Trae Young, just to make it tangible, because I think we're better off drafting another young player, and there'll be another player in this new landscape of the new collective bargaining agreement. There'll be a player next year. That would be my argument. But to not consider it is basically, I think Austin Ainge's point, puts a huge factor and a toll on an organization that you just absolutely eliminate all other aspects. That's not great. And that's what, when you're truly tanking, Houston 3 years ago, Detroit a few years ago, you do. You've taken all other options off the table. And Ainge referenced optionality a multitude of times, which leads me to believe that, like, he's not willing to just put us on a single track. The comment he makes about players want to have hope and want to win. I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I wanted to expound on it. If we have a starting lineup next year of Keontae George, Trey Johnson, Lauri Markkanen, Taylor Hendricks, and Walker Kessler, with a bench of Isaiah Collier, Bryce Sensabaugh, Will Riley out of Illinois, and Kyle Filipowski. Am I forgetting anyone? Cody Williams. That's our 10-man rotation next year. So we've moved John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton. That group can do what Austin Ainge said with DJ and PK, which is, I want our team to fight to the end, to try to win, and to improve. They can do that. Keontae George, Trey Johnson. You can have it be Jeremiah Fears if you want to for this conversation, since we'll talk about him in a second. With Lauri Markkanen, Taylor Hendricks, Walker Kessler, Isaiah Collier, Bryce Sensabaugh, Cody Williams, Will Riley, or Rasheer Fleming, and Kyle Filipowski. And you can have that be your group, and you can fight to the end and try to win and improve and not manipulate the standings, and you'll take that draft pick. That's what Washington did last year. That they probably may have maximized what they could have done. And in the midst of that, you can begin to build hope. And I think that's what he's talking about. If Keontae and Trey Johnson suddenly begin to have a chemistry in the backcourt and begin to feel it together and have some moments, and Taylor Hendricks begins to come together and they look at him like, oh, wow, this kid can really shoot it. He's beginning to play, and oh, he's going to be good. Oh, we're going to be able to do this together. And your hope is not a tangible win note total on August 15th of 2026, but instead a growth of who you're going to become in 27 and 28, and you know Will Hardy's going to be your head coach, and you kind of see it, then a player can have hope. They can feel like they're in an okay situation. Not a lot of our players left this last season going through that feeling like, oh, woo, am I excited for next year? And that can float into a toll on the team and the organization. And that's what I think Austin's talking about. That's where he talked. And then the other really key, interesting thing that was said was PK just kind of subtly said, well, it's clearly you talked about those things before the answer. He said, absolutely. There were prior communications. So Austin had either been given an edict by Ryan Smith and Ashley Smith that we don't want to do this again, or Austin had said, we can do it in a different way. I don't want to be a part of it this way. Fundamentally, bottom line to this whole conversation, when Austin Ainge talks about making good decisions and finding value, if you put into the value of almost any package, of any deal he would make in this offseason to improve us, and you include either keeping or losing a top 8 pick in an NBA draft. So in other words, we can go trade for Jaylen Brown and we're giving up these players and we're losing a first-round pick to do it, versus we don't trade for Jaylen Brown. We move some other players. We may take lesser value here and that because we gain a top 8 pick. It's going to be almost impossible to find a deal where the value of losing a top 8 pick is a good decision. I just want to make sure I think we're clear on that. I don't know that from anyone. I'm just saying that myself. I just understand the value of things in the league. I'm going to say that one more time. When Austin Ainge is roster building in this draft period and in the next trade period, which is the trade deadline, it is going to be almost impossible for him to find value that is worth losing a top 8 pick for. Okay? Doesn't mean we can't have hope. Doesn't mean we can't play to the fight in the end and try to win. Doesn't mean you can't do those things and improve. Doesn't mean that you have to manipulate. No. But to find value that is worth losing a top 8 pick, almost impossible. Deep dive. Jeremiah Fears. Next on Locked On Jazz. We have a number 1 pick for you. He's Steve Carter. He is Intercap Lending's personal loan officer for Locked On. Intercap Lending is a Utah-based loan company, but not Utah only. That is important for you. Absolutely going to be, they do amazing, incredible, unbelievable work in making sure that you get a easy loan experience. And the way they do it is with our guy, our own personal loan officer, Steve Carter. What Steve Carter will do for you is remarkable. When you talk, let me just go to the reviews. Katie Pennington, I worked with Steve for 3 loans now. He gets the loan together quickly. He's great to work with. Carlos, Steve Carter's the best, always on top of it. Gets back to you after hours if needed. One of the best companies and persons I've dealt with in many years. Thank you, Steve, for a great experience. Tim, highly recommend. Steve was phenomenal, very thorough. He made my experience very easy from the beginning to the end. Wonderful people at Intercap. Okay, this one's simple. If you're looking for a loan, email me at dlock09@gmail.com and let us get you hooked up with Steve Carter so that you can get the Locked On VIP experience over at Intercap Lending. That's dlock09@gmail.com. Today's show is also brought to you by BetterHelp. Talk about something that doesn't get talked about enough. Men's mental health, right? You got to tough it out, right? Come on. Right. Keep it together. Got to perform. Got to provide. Never show weakness. Right. But the truth is, the real strength comes from being the best to everyone around you at all times. And often that involves opening up and taking care of your own mental well-being. Every year, 6 million men in the U.S. experience depression, and many go undiagnosed. But talking to someone, a friend, a loved one, or a therapist can make a huge difference. So therapy isn't just for crisis moments. It's good for learning how to set boundaries, build healthy coping skills, and build the best version of yourself. That is where BetterHelp comes in. With over 35,000 licensed professionals, BetterHelp makes it easy to find a therapist who understands you. You can connect from anywhere, switch therapists at any time, fit sessions into your schedule with just a click. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Oh, and here's a good deal. 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Let's dig into Jeremiah Fears, the small guard or 6'2.5" guard with an incredible vertical jump out of the University of Oklahoma. We're going to do it the same way we did this with VJ Edgecombe, and we hope to do the same thing. I'm running out of time on Texas with Trey Johnson tomorrow. We'll see if I can find a way. It's going to take me a little bit of a way to do it. But anyway, I'm going to try. So Fears is this absolutely fabulous young guard who continues to kind of grab everyone's attention a little bit. He grew up in Illinois. He's in a basketball-centric family. His father played college at Ohio University, was then transferred to Bradley. His older brother is a guard at Michigan State. And he played, so he's played alongside his brother, then transferred and played in one of those basketball schools at Arizona, and then he reclassified, committed to Illinois, decommitted, reclassified, and went to Oklahoma. Played 30 minutes a night, averaged 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He's 30 against Michigan, is 27 and 10 against Mississippi State. Kind of got him on the radar of a bunch of things of that nature, and he's a legitimate chance to go to the Jazz at 5. Let's start it off with our NBA draft board expert, Rafael Barlow, on Jeremiah Fears. We have 2 6'6" point guards in the NBA Finals, but we've got a 6'2.5" point guard that has people excited in the NBA draft in Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma. Give me an overview of his game, Raphael.
Well, think of it this way. Jeremiah Fears is preparing for the NBA draft right now, but in reality, he's supposed to be preparing for his summer vacation or maybe even just finishing up going to the prom. He reclassified, is one of the younger players in this draft. And like I mentioned, the SEC was historically tough this year. But as a freshman, an underage freshman, maybe underage is not the correct words to use, but as a freshman that reclassified, he was the man on the Oklahoma team. He averaged 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, not afraid of the moment. He had a game winner against Michigan. He literally carried that team into the NCAA tournament. And one of the things I look for in a point guard or even just an NBA prospect, especially as a freshman, are your senior teammates giving you the ball and getting out the way. That means you've earned the respect of your teammates and even the coaching staff. And that is what was going on at Oklahoma. So for him being a potential top 5 pick is a story in itself because he wasn't on my radar as a one and done guy coming into this season.
He becomes a NBA solid starter. How?
His ability to consistently get 2 feet in the paint. And in today's NBA, the game is all about, can you draw defenders? Can you draw 2 and find one? And I think with his speed and his ability to create shots for himself, he has what it takes to be a solid level NBA starter or better. I think he has all-star potential.
Okay, so that's my next question is, he becomes the NBA all-star how? He becomes one of the top 5 point guards in the NBA how?
He becomes a better shooter from 3. Like right now, if you just look at the 3-point shooting numbers, they're pretty low, but he shot 85% from the free throw line. So the touch is definitely there. So I think for him getting stronger and just improving as a decision maker and just like I said, consistently being able to get 2 feet in the paint, being able to draw 2 defenders, find the open man and knock down open shots. And with his speed, if he's a better 3-point shooter, he's going to be tough to defend. All
right. 2 questions. We have 2 6'6" guards. That's how we open this in the finals.
Yep.
The primary ball, one of the 2 primary ball handlers, I think on now 65% of the teams in the NBA, so almost 19 of the 30 teams, are 6'7" or taller.
Yeah.
And if you're Orlando, they're just both that way, right? But like Luka, right? You can run the list.
Yep.
The only guys that are 6'2.5" that are really good are Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell, Kyrie Irving. Like I might be forgetting someone, but right, we're talking about,
Trae Young.
Trae Young, like, yeah, right. Trae Young's like unbelievable. Like those 4 guys are so. This is my Jeremiah Fears fear, is that to be 6'2" now and play in the NBA, you don't just have to be good. Yeah. You've got to be Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young, Jalen Brunson good. Like that's unbelievable. And other than Kyrie, like Atlanta has some doubts on Trae Young, right? Jalen Brunson, like Rick Carlisle's cutting press conference comment that they played their best defensive players that game, and that's why they were so good, was telling. Cleveland's wondering a little bit about having Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell in their backcourt. How big it concerns us from an NBA standpoint of where we're going in the league is the fact that Jeremiah Fears is 6'2.5".
Well, you mentioned Darius Garland. Darius Garland was an all-star, and he was the starting point guard on the Cleveland team they had the best record in the East. They had some injuries this year, so I think people are probably overreacting because they were not healthy in the playoffs. And in today's NBA climate, they could end up in the finals next year if they run it back, just because there's so much parity. Do you consider De'Aaron Fox in that same range? I mean, Fox is about 6'3"-ish, so he's an all-star.
I'm more worried about the fact that De'Aaron Fox still can't shoot. The unspoken thing about De'Aaron Fox is he's still a 32% three-point shooter.
Yeah. But, I mean, he's been good. I mean, I think he's still an NBA starter and maybe a borderline all-star for the next 5 years. So I think that Fears is going to be fine. Like I said, he's a year ahead of schedule, maybe even 2 years, according to most people. And the free throw shooting, if you're a believer in free throw shooting as an indicator of touch, then you have to be optimistic about him developing to a reliable three-point shooter. Because like I said, he shot 85% from the foul line.
That is Rafael Barlow on Jeremiah Fears. He measured at 6'2.5", 180, 6'5" and a quarter wingspan, and an 8'2" standing reach with a very high level, a very good vertical jump. So I don't know if there is actually that big of an athletic height concern. To me, it's an issue. That's why I brought it up. But he continues to percolate. He did not grab, on a personal note, he did not grab my attention at the very early going of this. And so I think that a little bit of a, he on our show specifically, he got kind of a back seat because the first games I watched, Trey Johnson was better than he was. And now Trey Johnson may go ahead of him. And I was kind of struck by his size and some things. The size thing, there's a great feature you can kind of choose to put a comp in on height and things on him. Nobody really shows up that we talked about. Like the best size things for him are maybe Kirk Heinrich or Trey Mann or some things like that. But nobody that great. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk more, find out more about Jeremiah Fears from John Williams of Locked On Sooners and get his insight into what he brings to the table as a young point guard in the NBA. Today's show is brought to you in part by Open Phone. As I have said before, this is truly the product that I wish we knew about at Locked On before we started advertising afterwards. Because when I opened Locked On and you're building a company, we just actually used my own personal phone number as the Locked On phone number for probably 5 or 6 years. It also meant that we missed all sorts of calls, and that's bad because if every time you miss a call, you're leaving money on the table. So, think about the last time you had an urgent need. If you call somebody and they don't answer and there's not there, you move on to the next thing you need. So that's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or your computer. Open Phone lets you arrange business calls, texts from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer because your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you can never miss a customer. Open Phone is offering my listeners 20% off their first 6 months. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. Openphone, OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. If you have an existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. They don't say it, but no headaches. All right, let's get the local experts of Locked On and learn more about Jeremiah Fears from the great John Williams of Locked On Sooners. We've gotten the breakdown from the draft expert and Rafael Barlow, Locked On NBA Big Board, which should be a daily listen for you, your second listen. Now we go to the local expert, John Williams, Locked On Sooners, Jeremiah Fears. 6'2.5" point guard out of Oklahoma. Let's start with the first part, John. Everyone talks about he reclassified, he's younger. Was his youth evident? Like, was the story that his youth was not evident?
Through non-conference play, you couldn't really tell that he should be playing his senior season of high school basketball. But once SEC play arrived, you could kind of tell the physicality raised up in the level of play that he was having to go up against. And it was just a different game for him then. But he adjusted, he adapted, he began to get more comfortable with the level of physicality that he saw in the SEC. And he started playing much, much better over the second half of conference play. So I'd say it was an ebbs and flows kind of a season for him where, non-conference play, they looked really good. They got big wins over Arizona and Michigan, and they looked like a really, really good basketball team. And they were a top 25 team flirting with the top 10. And then SEC play arrived, and it was a bit of a nightmare at times for the Oklahoma offense as a whole. But you could see that Jeremiah Fears was kind of struggling a little bit just to adjust. But then over the last, 10 games or so of SEC play, he started playing much more comfortably, much more consistent. And then you get into SEC tournament play, and he was a whole lot better and helped Oklahoma get back to the tournament, the NCAA tournament, for the first time under Porter Moser. So a good season for him, though.
You mentioned Porter Moser. He's a Rick Majerus disciple, who was a head coach at the University of Utah for a long time. Rick Majerus gave some players PTSD from how abusive he was verbally and mentally and things of that nature. I don't know that you can still do that as a head coach, thankfully. Mm-hmm. What is Porter Moser like as a head coach? What was that environment like for Jeremiah Fears to play in at Oklahoma?
He's an intense coach. I mean, you could see it on the sideline. He never looks relaxed. He always looks like he's just ready to pop off. And I don't think so in an angry way, just more in an intensity way. He's just always at 110% in his energy level. As a relational guy, it seems like he builds good relationships. He's a strong recruiter, has done so at least in the transfer portal, having to rebuild his program over the last several years. But I think he has to be good with players in order to get a guy like Jeremiah Fears to come to Norman and then to reclassify to come a little bit earlier. To me, he seemed like a good, strong players coach, and he does a really good job in building relationships in the community with the fans as well, trying to get them to come out. Oklahoma basketball just hasn't really had a big following, but he's doing what he can to help push the fan base to come to the Lloyd Noble Center, 2-3 times a week.
Jeremiah Fears, how did they deal with him? Did they hide him from the media as a 18-year-old kid? Did they put him out there? What was he like in his interactions off the court?
I think early on, it was just one of those, hey, we got these veterans like a Jalen Moore and Sam Godwin that are the leaders of the team, and they were putting those guys out front. But it didn't take long before Jeremiah Fears became the talk of Oklahoma basketball, of SEC basketball, because to see what a 17-year-old kid was doing out there on the floor was impressive. And everybody could see that the lottery was in his future. It was just a matter of how high in the lottery would he go. And Oklahoma fans were hoping, hey, maybe he decides to stick around one more year and we can get another year of Jeremiah Fears. But that was always kind of the pipe dream. But eventually Oklahoma knew they had to put him out front because he's a superstar talent. And he was somebody that the fans wanted to hear from, the media wanted to hear from. They wanted to get his perspective on games, especially, again, as he was going through the ups and downs of SEC play.
And I've watched a few of the games. One of them, like against Texas, I thought he was outplayed. Then another game, and then there's the game where he just suddenly goes down the middle of the floor and just packs it. And you're like, oh, that's it. That's why everyone's talking about it. What do you see from him night in and night out as a player?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right there. There were a couple games there. You're like, man, where is Jeremiah Fears? This is just not going well for him. It's too much right now. But then there'd be games like, okay, this kid is going to be a future star in the NBA because he's got the ability to get to the basket seemingly at will. And his speed is just different. You see it on the basketball court, the way he's able to play with speed, the way he's able to go from, the defensive end of the basketball court to the basket in no time. It just shocks everybody. It's just incredible the way he's able to get up the floor and move. And I think an underrated part of his game is his ball handling ability in the way he's able to get by defenders and then also make passes on the go. He's just to me, he's a complete point guard and someone an NBA team is going to be able to build around. If he can continue to develop his jump shot, which was streaky at times, then it's going to make him a more complete player. But as a point guard, as somebody who can get to the lane, get to the basket, he's an incredible finisher around the hole.
It's hard when I watch these guys because I don't know what the scouting, what the coach wants and things of that nature. You're not watching them every night. I thought at times as the season went on, as I watched, I probably watched in November and I watched it as January and watched it February, March, right? Like, haven't watched a lot. I thought as the games I saw later, I thought he over dribbled. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's possible. At the same time, there was so much of Oklahoma's offense that's been disjointed over the years because either you don't have enough good shooters in Porter Moser's offense that requires you to be able to shoot from the outside, or there's just not enough movement around him that, okay, you've got a superstar talent and at times you want him to have the ball in his hands and go figure it out. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing when you're a young player like he is playing against, some SEC teams that have 22, 23-year-olds on their roster. Sometimes you might overthink some things. And I think it's a part of his game that he's going to continue to develop. But you can't deny that when the game's on the line or you're in a big game, you want the ball in Jeremiah Fear's hands. And there were times I thought that he might have passed the ball and given it up too much as well. And so it's a bit of a balance and something that he'll continue to grow in and learn, I think.
I mean, that's the signature everyone says when they talk about why Jeremiah Fears is so good and you're so excited about him, is they all talk about late game stuff. They talk about he carried teams to win. That seems to be the signature and what has people most excited about Jeremiah Fears.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to imagine a guy that should have been playing his senior year of basketball being the go-to guy on an SEC basketball team. That, to me, that's just mind-boggling. And again, the level of physicality that anybody has to deal with when you're playing, going from high school to college, it's a big difference. It's a big jump in the level of physicality, the level of speed, the level of talent that you're going up against. And for him to emerge so quickly and become that guy for Oklahoma, it just says a lot about the potential that he has because he's not even reached his full potential. And I think he's got the work ethic. He's got the right mindset. He's got the tenacity and the desire to be great, not just to be a guy at the NBA level. He wants to go and he wants to be great. And you can see it just in the way that he carries himself.
I just want to go on the record on this just because I'm such an analytical freak. I have no idea what I think of this reclassified thing. I think it's like a great storyline and it's super to talk about and it sounds really good. I actually just want the data. Does it actually matter? Does it I keep hearing this about Cooper Flagg's going to be great, right? So or all intention, it seems to be, and he's reclassified, and it's somewhat new. So we probably don't have a sample size of more than 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 guys, but I'd like to know, what about the other, let's say there've been 15 guys before have all reclassified. Did it actually make them better pros? I just kind of wonder I just want to throw it out there that it's, because we talked about it with Raphael and you were talking about John and everyone talks about it when they talk about Jeremiah Fears. I kind of think it's an irrelevant storyline, actually, from a standpoint of if I'm an NBA personnel guy scouting, I don't really care. I just need to know if he's really good, but maybe I'm wrong because I just want to throw that out there.
Well, I think the difference here is just, would you like another year of high school basketball from Jeremiah Fears, or do you want that college tape? You can't go straight high school to the pros anymore. So that doesn't matter.
I think I understand why Jeremiah Fears is doing it. I'm saying as an NBA person,
does
it actually mean he's going to be any better in the NBA than he reclassified? Like when we're talking about Jeremiah Fears right now, the number one thing you hear is, well, he reclassified. Okay, so what? That's what I'm saying.
I don't think
want to know if this actually matters.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to matter. I think what matters is that you fast forwarded his projection to the NBA.
What matters is he's going to make $4 million a year earlier than he would have otherwise.
Right. So you get him a year younger. That's about it. Yeah. That's the only difference.
100%. You mentioned the shooting. Let me phrase. Actually, I'm going to ask you the exact same question I asked Rafael Barlow to wrap. At 6'2.5", this is crazy. And this is I don't expect. There's a difference between this is how I feel. I watch the NBA every night and then other people watch college and they're just not the same game at all. And the most telling thing that's going on in the NBA right now is that about 17 or 18 of the 30 teams, one of their 2 primary ball handlers is now 6'8" or taller. Or 6. And then if you go to 6'6", you got Shea and Tyrese Halliburton in the NBA Finals as your point guards. The guys that are 6'2" are like Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland in Cleveland, Jalen Brunson, Kyrie Irving, Raphael added, and Trae Young. They're unbelievable. Now, they're all top 5 picks. So, like, maybe, or Donovan wasn't, but the others were. Like, maybe that's where he's going to be. And can he be that good? Because it seems to me, if you're a 6'2" point guard in the NBA, you have to be that good.
We'll see. I mean, I think there's the potential there. Again, he's got to continue to evolve his ability to shoot from the outside. Too many times he'd have like a 1-for-7 night from 3, but then he'd have a game where he was just lights out and you wanted him just taking as many shots as he wanted to from 3. It's that shooter's mentality. I mean, shooters are going to shoot, and the guy has that ability to just keep shooting, even if it's not going his way that night. Now, sometimes you're going to want to rein that in, but if he can continue to evolve that, which I think he can, I think he's got the ability. And again, I think he's got the work ethic to continue to evolve that part of his game, but it's going to be so easy for him to, get the catch and shoot. If he does evolve that, get the ball, have that defender trying to close out on him, one dribble and he's gone and he's to the hole. So the thing that works in his favor is that because he's so quick off the dribble, he's so good with the basketball in his hands, defenses are going to have to respect that ability to get to the hole, which should give him a little bit more space to operate on the outside as a shooter.
John Williams, Locked On Sooners. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Got a football guy talking basketball, but Oklahoma's all basketball right now. So
that's right. Thanks to Jeremiah Fears.
Gilgeous-Alexander. The Jazz, you've heard about Fears, you've heard about Edgecombe. We'll try to do the same tomorrow with Trey Johnson. Give me your thoughts. It's Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast of the Utah Jazz. We now send you the first ever national 24/7 national NBA channel, Locked On NBA, for draft coverage. Check out Locked On NBA Big Board. Have a good one.